It's a love story, baby, just say yes.
Romeo, take me somewhere we can be alone. I'll be waiting for you, but you never come. Is this in my head? I don't know.
What you
He
thinking?
nailed to the ground and
pulled out a ring and said,
marry me, Juliet. You never have to be alone. I love you, and that's all I really know. Hey guys.
It's Monday, Miracle Monday.
Yay.
Good job.
What are we talking about today?
Jobs. All the jobs we've had in our lifetime.
Our job history, and I guess we could talk about our dream jobs too.
Yeah, and I think that we should tell highlights, which are really lowlights from our jobs,
Yeah.
because we have so many of those.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start? What was your very, very, very first job? I'm talking babysit. Did you ever babysit
Nope.
anybody? No?
No.
So,
I could tell you the first jobs I applied at
yeah.
when I was I think 16. I'm pretty sure I was 16. I applied at Sweet Frog.
Oh my gosh, the yogurt place?
Yeah.
I forgot about that place.
And they didn't hire me. Me and Erica both went. And
That would have been
applied.
such a fun place to work, I feel like.
Yeah,
but
especially
also,
for our first job.
Yeah. But also I feel like it would have been awful. It could have gone
Maybe.
either way.
It seems very easy. I don't really know. You just gotta put out some ice cream and clean.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
True.
But yeah, so didn't get that job. And then I don't know. I don't think there's anything else that I did in between there. And then at 18 I got my first job at Five Below.
Yep. I remember that day. I remember your first day.
My interview was at Sheets. I met with the manager at
funny.
Sheets. And I was so new to everything. This
Yeah.
was my first interview
Yeah.
ever, so man, the anxiety. And I didn't know that she was already in an interview. I just saw two ladies sitting back there, and so I just I wanted to make sure she knew I was there on time.
Yeah.
And also I was anxious. I didn't know what to do, so I kind of walk up and I'm like, "Are you her name?" And she was she basically looked at me like, "Yes, read this and sit over there." Basically
Oh my
gave me a paper.
gosh.
And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that I just interrupted another interview.
Yeah.
But they kind of just looked like they were just sitting there chilling. I don't
Yeah.
know how to explain it. And also, it was my first time.
But also it was at Sheets.
Yeah,
So how formal can it be?
exactly. And yeah, it was scary, but pretty sure she hired me. I'm pretty sure she hired me on the spot
Yeah.
because it was a grand opening. So they were hiring everybody. I feel like interviews weren't even necessary, to be honest. But yeah, and that was my first job. What was your first job? I just feel like I could go into stories forever, so I'm not even going to start
Yeah,
the stories yet.
'Cause we know that my job history is long.
Yeah.
I've had so many jobs. I've lived so many lives.
Yeah, you have.
My very first, so Ariel used to babysit when we lived in Chicago. She used to babysit for weddings and stuff. And I was always so jealous because David would do handyman work for people. He would go and paint or clean or whatever. I don't know, just to earn some extra money. And Ariel would babysit. But I'm 4 years younger than Ariel. So obviously I was not old enough to babysit yet. And so I would always go to the weddings. So she would be babysitting for the weddings and I would be at the weddings. And I just remember being I just can't wait till I'm old enough to work and to earn money and whatever. And when we moved here, I was 12 and I remember, oh my gosh, somebody called our house phone and asked if one of the pastor's daughters would be available to babysit every Saturday while their older kids were in basketball at the church. So my mom came to me and she said, Mariah, we sat down on the couch. She was very serious about it. And she said, there's somebody that wants you to babysit for them. And I was so excited and I was so nervous. And it was so easy. The first time I babysat her, it was at the church so that I could because I didn't know them. We were brand new to this place. And so it was so that I could get to know her and get to know the parents. So I babysat her in the nursery. And then after that, my mom took me to their house every Saturday morning. And I would babysit her. She was 3. She was little. And it was just so chill. We just played. And I took that so seriously.
I bet you did.
So seriously. And I was so proud of myself for finally being able to do that. And oh my gosh, I was just so proud. And then I had a couple more babysitting jobs, as time went on. One babysitting job, I watched 3 girls in the summer. I watched them every day in the summer. Ask me how much I got paid.
How much did you get paid?
$3 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Why did they do me dirty like that? And I didn't even know. I was just happy to get a check.
You're like, wow, $10 after a whole week.
My parents were looking at my check one day and they were like, is this normal? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, they did the calculations and they were like, that's what they're paying you? And I was like, I don't care. So that's crazy. I was 14 when that was happening.
Literal slave labor.
Yeah, for real. But it's fine. I had a good time. And one of them was just a teeny tiny little baby. And I just thought that was the best thing ever.
Well, that's even more
it was so stressful.
Care.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy times. But my first real job, clock in, I had to interview for it, that type of job, was at the Creation Museum in the bookstore. I was 16. And I was at that point, not anymore, but at that point, I was the youngest person they had ever hired. But now they hire 14, 15-year-olds, so whatever. But they used to take it very seriously.
Yeah.
They don't anymore. Because my dad's in charge, so nothing can be serious.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've had so many jobs. I'll just go down the list. After I worked at the museum, I worked at a cafe. That was, it was a local cafe that my mom's friend owned and opened. It was a health food store / cafe. That was honestly so fun. Such a good job. I worked there forever. And that's where I met Tessa.
Aww.
Isn't that cute?
Isn't that crazy how much life would be different for if you didn't go to certain places, went to certain churches, certain jobs, the people that you've met, you would never know.
Yeah.
If you had just made one different decision or your parents did or whatever,
Yeah, it was
that's her best friend, by the way.
Yes. It was so crazy that the way that we met. So we had live music every Friday night. And so sometimes sometimes I would work in the morning and then I would go home in the afternoon and then I would come back to work the Friday night shift. And so that's what I did that day. And I came back in and there's this girl in the kitchen chopping vegetables with Missy. And I was I walked in, and at that point in my life, I was planning on going to, I think I was 16 because it was right after the museum. Maybe I was 17. I don't know. And so I was planning on going to college for American Sign Language to become an interpreter. And so when I walked in, Missy was like, "Oh, this is Tessa. This is her first night." And I was like, "She's starting on a Friday night." We never did that because Friday nights were so hectic. And I was like, "Ooh, we're just really throwing her into the deep end." And I was like, "Hey." And she said, "You guys will have a lot in common. You both work with your hands." And I was like, "Okay." And so I did what I needed to do in the kitchen. And then, I don't know, I stayed in the kitchen. Missy left. And I was like, "What does she mean by that? That we both work with our hands?" And she was like, "I don't know." But it's because we figured out later. It was because I was planning on going to college for ASL and she was going to college to become a diesel mechanic.
Oh.
And so really those things have nothing in common. But Missy was like, I'm going to make you guys like each other. And it worked out.
Yeah.
Because Oh my gosh. We became such fast friends. And here we are. I'm the aunt to her child now.
She's wearing her sweater that she got her that says aunt, if you're listening and you can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of, you said you wanted to go to college for ASL.
Yeah.
What about like when you were growing up as a kid? What was your like thing you wanted to
My
do?
dream, I wanted
Yeah.
to be a secretary. That was my dream
What?
job.
That makes so much sense to who you are. I wanted to work with dolphins because I loved dolphins. So I would always say I want to be an oceanologist. And I didn't even know what an oceanologist
Yeah.
was. I just knew they worked in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the difference between an oceanologist and a
Marine biologist.
a marine biologist. And so I would just tell people like, I want to be an oceanologist.
Oh,
But
that's actually so cute.
I didn't care about the ocean. I just cared about dolphins. So I always wanted to work with dolphins.
That's fun.
And like I still to this day haven't like swam with dolphins yet.
Oh my gosh, we have to do that.
I know. And yeah, I ended up not working with dolphins at all. I did look into working at an aquarium one time.
Oh yeah.
But it was far away, so I would have had to like move there and
Mhm.
like I
Yeah, you
didn't
weren't ready
have
for
the
that.
I think
Yeah.
that was when I was like 17 or 18. I don't even know. That timelines,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
yeah. It's easier for me to keep track of timelines in my life because I moved so much.
yeah.
And so I just have to think about, oh, what house was I living in when this happened? And then I'm like, okay, so I was probably this age.
I lived in the same house, the same city, everything for my whole life. My
Yeah.
whole entire family, like we never moved once
Yeah.
until obviously
No.
now. But yeah, it always was crazy to me when people would like move around and move houses, move cities, move states. Like I never knew what that was like.
Meanwhile, this move that we're about to make in a couple weeks is going to be my 6th move in 6 years.
Wow.
I'm so tired of moving. But I'm excited for this move.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's an upgrade every time.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, even if they don't move cities, they still like move houses and stuff.
Mhm.
Like, not us. So, I never knew what it was like to move. I never
Yeah.
experienced that until when I moved out.
Mhm.
And obviously, it's different when you just have like your
Your
own
own
stuff
stuff.
and not just a whole entire house to move. But yeah, I worked at Five Below for 6 years.
And honestly, I used to like be I am still so impressed that you stuck it out for so long
Yeah.
because I jumped from job to job to job, and not because I couldn't like keep a job, but a lot of times I would get like seasonal positions and then the season would be over and so I would go to my next job. And I just remember like you just worked there forever and you just kept moving up, like you just kept getting promoted
Yeah.
and you worked so hard and you were so dedicated there. And I was like, wow.
Wonder what that's like.
Yeah.
It was not a good job. It's not
Yeah.
like I was happy. It's not like it was fulfilling. No. It was just kind of like, yeah, like part of it was like that like competitive
Yeah.
spirit of mine where it's like, see how long I can make it. And I'm like one of the OG.
Yeah.
Because I started from when the store was just like open still. Like
Yeah.
open as in construction open.
Yeah.
That's when they first did like the orientation and stuff, and like then when we started there was pallets all over the floor and we were like building the shelves and stuff from
Yeah.
scratch, putting everything up from scratch, and over the years people would just come and go
Mm-hmm.
and after 6 years I was the only one standing that was still
An
from
OG.
day one. Yeah.
And my favorite part of that is that you wouldn't have been there unless you fought for it.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy
Yeah.
to think about.
Because once the thing is when people hire you on, when a place first opens, they're planning on letting all of y'all go once the store's open.
Mm-hmm.
Like after the first like grand opening, like probably couple weeks, they're gonna like see who they want there the most and
Yeah.
try to like get rid of the rest. And since there was so many people they were letting go of, I'm pretty sure I was one of them. And
But they wouldn't, like, let them go. They
No.
would just not put them on the schedule.
yeah, and just not call you, not talk to you, whatever. So I called him and I was like, so what's my schedule? And they're like, you're not on the schedule for this week. I'm like, okay, I'll call next week.
Yeah.
What's the schedule? What's my schedule? Here, let me see what I can do. And then they put me on, like, after probably a couple weeks of trying to, like,
Yeah.
just be like, oh yeah, you're not on the schedule anymore or whatever. And of course, like, they probably lost people in those 2 weeks.
Sure.
And
because nobody's going to be like, oh, I'm going to keep calling. I'm going to keep calling.
Yeah, and nobody's going to want to
okay.
work 2 days a week. That's all they were
Yeah.
doing. Everyone was only like 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then they were like, okay, and they started bringing me in. And yeah, and then it was really tough. I was like mistreated really badly by the managers, by other employees. I was so new to everything too, so I didn't like
Yeah.
fully know how to stand up for myself yet. And I obviously was new to all things that's a job. So
Yeah.
it's like everything I'm learning is for the first time.
Yeah.
Like being at the register, being on the floor, like everything. Talking to people, like
Yeah.
in a customer service type of way, because you kind of have to learn that.
Right.
And
You have to develop your customer service voice.
yeah. And so I had to learn, I had to fight for it. I had to endure so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was very disrespected and everything. But then like the next manager was the one who really saw how good of an employee that I was,
Yeah,
and how
and
hardworking I was.
Yeah.
And I was their favorite.
Probably the first manager was jealous of you. Or like,
yeah.
not jealous of you, but just like, she's going to make me look bad.
Yeah. So once the new manager started, he was the one who started like bringing me up more into like more management stuff, and I was doing freight, and yeah, he was really cool, and he gave me more opportunities, and he kind of let us get away with a lot of stuff, and he would always bring us like breakfast and stuff in the morning. Before he left, he made me a merch manager, and then the new manager came in, and he was absolutely terrible at first.
Yeah.
And he was like a friggin' drill sergeant, military man, and he was treating us like we were in the military.
Yeah.
This man yelled in my face.
I remember getting Snapchats from you, like, at work, sometimes, like, during your lunch break, but sometimes you would be, like, secretly recording
Oh,
when you
yeah.
were talking to him. And I was like, oh, like, I didn't know how you stayed. I would have broke down crying, which, like, you did.
No, I didn't even cry when he was yelling in my face, though.
But after you did.
Yeah. But that was so crazy to me, because normally I can't even, like, argue back because I get so mad that I just start crying. It's not that I'm crying out of, like, sadness. It's like I'll just get so angry.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like, I don't know, you just can't believe it's happening. But I was like arguing in his face back.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know like who this man is talking to.
Yeah.
Because I knew a lot, and I knew more than he did.
Yeah.
And he would come in and try to change everything that we were taught.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, we were taught this way. And he would be like, well, I'm telling you how to do it this way. But I knew the market plan.
Yeah.
And he would just go every way against the market plan. We were always like supposed to do things according to the market plan. And if we didn't, the district manager would come in and correct it.
Right.
So we're like, he keeps telling us to do everything the opposite of what we've learned.
Yeah.
And so then when the district manager came, suddenly he was okay with him doing it.
With him, like, changing
it. It was so weird. It was so
weird.
But yeah, he was really rude to us, and he was just like terrible, like literally a bully.
Yeah.
And not a manager. And so we told the district manager, because we were like, this is like ridiculous. And this one girl, she was not there for long, but she was the one that stuck up for me. She called the district manager and told on this manager because she didn't like the way that he was treating me. And she saw it. She didn't even know me. She was new. She was there for like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And she saw everything that happened. And she didn't even care to work there. Like, she had quit not long after that, but she wanted to make sure that it was exposed. And she was there during, like, before Christmas time, like, whatever, which is when my birthday is. And she brought me cupcakes and balloons on my birthday. Like,
aww.
I was like, this is crazy that someone who's only been here for a couple weeks can, like, even care.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, so I really respect her for that. And then she quit because she didn't like him. She was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't deal with that, but she made sure that she was like stuck up before she left. And I think that's so cool. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's such a respectable thing. And yeah. And then after the district manager had spoke to him, a switch went off
Wow.
and he changed. And I have no clue to this day. He became cool. So cool.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy. I don't even know. He actually started to really respect me.
Yeah.
And me and him would just be in the office talking. Like, he would come in with pizza and like share it, and like he would just be sitting on the desk and we would just be talking, like chilling. Like, you would never think what happened before.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And he would, like, when I would go take my breaks, he would let me go get food and then clock out when I come back. And
Yeah.
sometimes he was like, sometimes he didn't even care if I clocked out for my break.
Yeah.
Just whatever. He just became so cool. I really don't get it.
That's crazy, and it says a lot about you,
Yeah.
because you could like roll with the change. Like, you were
Mhm.
like, okay, he's cool now. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
Instead of like holding that against him, holding like the craziness against him and being like, no, like, you treated me wrong, and so I'm just not going to talk to you. I'm not going to accept this change. Like, you were wrong, and like, I'm going to hold a grudge.
Yeah.
You were just like, okay, you're cool now. We're good.
Yeah. It was always shocking to me.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I really still to this day don't even know like
Yeah,
what in the world.
happened? What did the district manager say to him?
I don't know.
That's
It was
crazy.
so weird. And it was like, it's not that he was faking it.
Right.
Like, I don't know what was wrong with him when he first came in.
Yeah.
And I'm not even doing it justice. Like, he was actually like so terrible and mean, and the stuff
like
he was
swear
saying.
in your face.
Yeah.
Like, scream, swear in your face.
Like, we were as close as me and you are.
Yeah.
He was screaming in my face.
Yeah.
And I was yelling back.
Yeah.
Because who do you think you are? You're not my friggin' dad.
Yeah.
You're not anything to me. You're
Yeah.
a new manager telling me I don't know how to do my job when you come in and you do everything the wrong way, and I'm trying to do it all the right way that we have always been taught, and you refuse to listen. And you know what's crazy what he did?
What?
So, you know, like in Five Below, there's the back wall that has all the games and stuff, and
Yeah.
they're all front facing.
Yeah.
He turned them all like a bookshelf.
No. Why would you do that?
Can you believe that?
Why would you do that? Even Target has their games front facing.
Everywhere on earth has it front facing. He thought it would make more room or something.
Okay,
and we were
but
like,
then you're not going to sell anything.
no,
'Cause
and we
they're not gonna
didn't.
be able to see it.
We didn't. It was insane. I couldn't believe it.
That's so weird.
And
Why?
yeah. And the district manager, like, I'm pretty sure he eventually told him not to have it like that, but I think at first, like, he was like kissing his butt or something. I don't know. We
That's
were
so
like,
weird.
there's no way that he's going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And another thing he made us do, no one else made us do, he had us like put stuff out on the shelf. We would have to put it right at the edge of the shelf, like everything lined up with the edge of the shelf. So like there's no space, like right at the edge of the shelf, just perfectly, like
Yeah.
to appease his OCD or something. And never were we
Interesting.
ever taught to do that. And he made us do that.
That's so weird.
And he would be like, see how it looks when it's back here, but then see how it looks when it's right at the edge. It looks much better. It was crazy.
That's so weird.
But once we started doing it like that, I couldn't stop. It was like, then it was like, okay, well, I guess this is just how I'm going to put stuff out for now, because
Yeah.
from now on. But no one else was like no one else was like that.
Yeah.
The other guy manager before that he didn't care as long as we just put stuff out.
Right.
Like he just wanted the stuff out.
Yeah.
It was two polar opposites. Oh my gosh, it was crazy.
That is crazy.
There's so much stories in between all of this, but this is just like the
highlights.
yeah.
The big picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those were crazy times. Yeah, I was always thinking, like, how does she even stay there?
I don't know.
I don't know
I stood my
either.
ground many
Yeah, you
times.
did.
And then people would learn to respect me. Even my
Yeah.
very first manager, she was very rude to me and everything, but then eventually she learned to respect me.
Mm-hmm.
And me and her would joke about things together, and like I would say things to her like as a joke that other people would never get away with,
yeah.
but like she would laugh because she knew, like, we just had this mutual respect that we
Yeah.
gained over the year or so of working together, and like other people would look shocked when they heard me say certain stuff to her a certain way, but it's 'cause we had that type
Yeah.
of respect now. It's crazy. Everyone learned to respect me
Yeah.
because I would stand up for myself. And as much as people hate that in the moment, I think eventually makes them think like, dang, they really did hold it to me.
Yeah.
Then my very last manager, the fourth manager, she was oh my gosh, this was just a whole nother level. And me and her also argued face to face one time, and she was just very nitpicky, but she wouldn't do anything.
Right.
She didn't know the market plan. She didn't know anything. She was not fit to be a general manager.
Yeah.
But then she would tell us we're doing everything wrong. She would complain about us to the district manager. And it was, that was a freaking hell at first too.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot of, she never really changed.
Yeah.
She did learn to respect me as well. And we did come to a mutual like thing. But she was always just so annoying to work with. Like everybody,
Yeah.
nobody could stand her.
It's crazy how like you can have really good managers and really bad managers.
Mhm.
Like and I've also had really good managers and really bad managers. And it's crazy like how do the bad managers even make it there? Like I really
Right?
don't get it because they're not good leaders. Like
No.
in order to be a manager, you have to be a good leader.
Leading by example.
Yeah.
Not sitting in the office barking orders.
Yeah.
And you don't even know. She would come to me and ask me for the market plan. She refused to learn it for herself.
Yeah, it's like
But you're getting paid salary and I'm not.
those kind of people think that like they don't have to know things because the people below them know things. And so
Yeah.
it's like the further up you get, the less work you have to do.
But that's also why you shouldn't skip a step. She was
Yes.
able to go from being like, there's like 2 assistant type managers.
Yeah.
One is on the merch side of things and one is on the like customer service and like
The registers and
emails,
stuff.
paperwork,
Yeah.
like more of that type of stuff. She was that one. So she didn't have to know the market
Oh,
plan.
Yeah.
She didn't have to know anything about putting out product or about pallets or anything,
Yeah.
which I think is wrong because why should you move up if you haven't even been in this place and then you're trying to tell me how to do it but you don't even know how to do it.
Right.
And then you're telling me it's wrong when I'm following the exact market plan. So crazy. And she was again not fit to be a manager, and she was very rude and disrespectful to people. She was even like so underlying rude to customers. I never knew how she got away with it. Yeah, she was a lot to deal with. I don't know how I made it again. Like, she got fired after I left, so I don't know what happened. Like a couple months later.
Well, they probably realized she doesn't know how to do anything.
No.
I can understand like if you're a people person and like people like you and that's why like you move up, but like if you have like an attitude and you don't know anything and you're not good at like schmoozing, how does that happen? I don't understand.
You just have to know people that are higher up, and you only get to where you are because of that. It's not because of your work ethic.
That's so true. My dad always told me it's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's the case with her. And my very first boss
Mm-hmm.
and her were friends.
Ah.
And the district manager, them 3 were all connected.
Mm.
And so the district manager would always take her side, which was crazy
Oh my
because
gosh.
she was always wrong, like genuinely.
And that's like,
I was genuinely a hard worker.
yeah,
I
I
was
know.
genuinely a loyal employee. And most people will sit here and tell you, they're like, I didn't care about that job. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I did the bare minimum. Like, people are honest about that. Like,
Especially
I-
retail jobs. Like people don't care about that.
I was working way too hard for $14 an hour. At this point, it was
Yeah.
14 when I was a manager,
Yeah.
which is not a lot of money for what I had to deal with. But think about how hard I was working when I was only making like 10.
Yeah. And I remember even when I lived there, you were working like overnights because you were doing freight. And there were times when you would go in like with the stomach flu and you would just
And a fever.
and a fever and you would just work through it.
Yeah, you know why? Because that same military man,
Yeah.
I was at work with a fever, sick, like barely could
Yeah.
move, like I was so sick. And I told him I came in 'cause I'm trying to push through, but honestly, I might just have to leave early. So we're just going to have to wrap it up early or something, and like I just want to check with you, whatever. And he said, "Can you just tough it out?" I was there toughing it out.
Oh my gosh.
And most people wouldn't want you to be around people with a fever.
No.
But I was basically forced to. And I knew I couldn't call out. I knew I had to at least go in and try.
Yeah.
And that's what I always did.
Yeah.
Can you tough it out? That's what he said
my
to me.
Gosh. That's actually crazy. Like, I've had some really bad bosses. But I'm pretty sure, like, because I would do the same thing. I would go in if I was sick, and I would just be like, I'm going to go and show them the proof that I'm sick.
Exactly.
And then hopefully they'll send me home. And most of the time that happened, I can't really remember any boss that made me tough it out. Like, I would make myself tough it out sometimes, but I don't do that anymore.
No.
It's after like COVID, after lockdown and everything, it's so much, like, I don't understand why people don't just stay home when they're sick. Like, actually.
That's the thing. I think it was COVID before COVID was a thing. Because I was very sick. Like, it was a bad sickness that it wasn't like a 24-hour bug type thing. It was like a bad fever, aches, like everything that like COVID was.
That's crazy.
And then because this was Christmas time, I believe this was like in December.
So it was before it was like, there were a bunch of people in my office when I was in California that I'm so sure that they had it. And it just wasn't, we just weren't diagnosing it yet.
I don't know. I've never met anyone that has as bad management stories as I have. Like, I would love to know, because I thought that's kind of just probably how managers are or something. Yeah. And it's not true. It's not right. True. It's not normal. It's not good, and you should not take abuse from anybody. But if anyone has any crazy manager stories, let me know, because I want to know them.
Yeah.
And I have many more. That's just the highlights.
Yeah.
If you can call it a highlight.
That's crazy.
So,
wow.
What about you?
I just don't know that I think the worst job experience I had was Chipotle.
Oh, yeah.
Which really sucks, because it would have been such a good job if the manager was good. You know what I mean? Like,
Five Below would have too.
Yeah. And I think that's true for like anybody that has had a bad manager. Like, that's the reason that their job sucks, not the job itself. But when I moved to North Carolina, I worked at Chipotle, and I was hired to be like a shift manager. Like, I don't remember what they called it. And I never got any training for that position. I only got training for the regular positions. And 2 guys were promoted to my same position, and they were getting training. And I was like, when am I going to get trained on this? Like, what, can I join in on this training? And the manager was like, "Oh, no, we'll do yours next." Why?
Yeah, why?
And I remember I went in one time on my day off, because he wasn't putting me on the schedule. Same song. He wouldn't put me on the schedule, and so I was like, I like moved here for this job, not for this job, but like this was like, I needed this job.
Yeah.
And so I went in on my day off one time to confront him, not to confront him, but just to be like, what's up? And so I went in there and I like asked for him, and he came out and we sat down, and I was like, I just want to know, like, if there's anything that I'm doing wrong. Like, why am I being pushed aside and like not trained? And then like these 2 other guys are being trained, and they like took pity on me, and they were like, well, we're going to teach you everything that we're learning. And yeah, I was only scheduled with one of them every once in a while. Like, it wasn't consistent enough for me to like learn from them. And so the manager was like, he said something about how like I went home a lot. Like, I went like back to Indiana a lot.
What?
Which wasn't true.
No.
I went like for Thanksgiving, because he didn't schedule me. And so I was like, cool, I'll just go home then.
Yeah, so how did he even know you went then?
I don't know, actually. The only thing that I can think of is like I was friends with some of the girls on Snapchat. But yeah, I'm not really sure. And sometimes like So Chipotle's really, really strict on like working when you're sick. Like they're not gonna let it happen.
I feel like that should be the standard for
Yeah.
food places, especially.
Yeah. So every time you come into work, like you are asked by your manager if you have any symptoms. Have you had a fever in the last 24 hours? Have you thrown up in the last 24 hours? Has anybody in your household been sick in the last 24 hours? Like, it's very extensive, and you have to like sign a piece of paper.
We had to do that for COVID once that
Yeah.
happened.
And so it was like very serious. And so one time he was asking me, he was like, "Have you been sick?" And I said, "No." And like it's the same questions every day, so you just know what he's going to say next. No, 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 no. And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Have you taken care of anybody that's been sick?" And these were not questions that were on the paper. And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Nobody in your house has been sick?" And I was like, "I live alone." And he was like, "Your cat hasn't been sick?"
What?
I said, "What cat? I don't have a cat. I'm allergic to cats."
Was he just trying to be funny?
I don't know. He was being like very
Serious?
serious. Yeah, he was like, "Okay." Like looking me up and down like,
Oh.
I know. It was so weird. That was such Okay, so then when I asked him like why I wasn't getting trained, he was like, "Well, we have a lot of stuff in the works, like you're going to be trained next and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "But why was I hired for this position in the first place if you're
Yeah.
not going to train me?" And I had asked for Sundays off because that's what I did back then. And he said to me that didn't make me look like a team player because he couldn't schedule me on Sundays. And he said, "I'm religious too," which I didn't tell him why I was asking for Sundays off.
Yeah.
And he was like, "I'm religious too." He was Mormon. He shared with me. And he was like, and it's a sacrifice to not be able to go to church on Sundays, but like sometimes you just have to put your job first. And I was like, I'm not going to change my mind like about Sundays. It was so weird. That was just such a crazy time. And I had a stomach ulcer because he stressed me out so bad. What a crazy time.
I know. It makes me like I'm overall, I don't have regrets and I'm thankful for everything that I learned and everything. But I really wish I would have known like what it was like to have a job you genuinely love going to.
Yeah.
And have people you genuinely love working with and managers that respect you and you respect them and y'all get along and y'all can help each other instead of it being some freaking war every time you go into work.
I have had jobs like that, thankfully.
Yeah.
One of my favorite jobs I ever had was working at camp. Ariel and I worked at a Salvation Army camp. I was in my 20s, early 20s. It was so much fun. Like Ariel had worked at camp a bunch, like several years in a row before that. But I had never gone with her. And one time she just talked me into it. I don't know how that happened. But she, like, we both went. She went to be a activities coordinator or something. And I went to be a counselor, like a cabin counselor. And when I got there, I went through like all of the training. And I also went through all the lifeguard training, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in such good shape. Honestly, like, I would do that again, 10 out of 10. Like, that was such a good workout. And so, like, it was so hard. I slept so solid every night because you were just, like, in the pool every day, swimming your heart out. Like, it was crazy.
Maybe that's what we need to help us sleep now. We need to go swimming at the Y.
Yeah, honestly, I'll teach you some of my lifeguard tricks. So I went through all of that training. And then, like, day or two before our first campers came, I was pulled aside and I was so afraid. Well, like, it was the camp director pulling me aside, and she was like, "So I know that you have experience working in food service," because at this point I had worked at the cafe. And she was like, "One of our kitchen workers is being moved to maintenance, and so we have an open position in the kitchen." And she was like, "It just seems like it might be a better fit for you." And she was like, "It would be helping in the kitchen and also running the snack shop every day." And she was like, do you want to move?" And it was a pay increase. And I was like, "Can I stay in the lodge with Ariel?" Because Ariel was going to have like a room in the little like hotel place all to herself. And she was like, yeah, I don't see why that would be a problem. Would Ariel be okay with that? And I was like, yes. And she was like, you guys are going to be like fine sharing a room? And I said, we've shared a room our whole lives. We're going to be fine. And so I moved into the lodge, and I was so relieved, honestly, because the roommate that I had when I was going to be a counselor, scary.
Oh my gosh. Imagine the stories you would have got from that.
I know. But it was like one of the hardest jobs I've ever had physically, because I would have to wake up super early because we had to make breakfast. So I would walk over to the kitchen at like 5:30. Oh my gosh. Just thinking about it, I'm so tired. And we would get breakfast ready. And okay, so all the other ladies in the kitchen were like older, like moms, and they all had worked together at the local school in the cafeteria, so they all knew each other, they were all friends. And they just like took me under their wing, and they loved me. And when they found out that I like specialized in special diets, they were like, oh my gosh, like that's your thing, you're in charge of all the special diets now. So we would get sheets of paper before the campers came of like who like needed special diet like trays, and then I would just figure it out. Like I would look at what we were making, and then I would figure out how to like make it gluten free, how to make it dairy free, how to make it kosher, or like whatever. And it was so fun. That was like a little puzzle. And I had like a little bit of freedom to like make stuff from scratch too, which was fun, because a lot of the stuff was just like you would just open it and dump it and put it in the oven. And they were always so impressed with me when I did that. So that was fun. But it was like so hard. So I would do breakfast, and after we served breakfast, then we would eat breakfast. So I would be there at 5:30 in the morning cooking, and we would serve breakfast at I think like 8.
Oh my gosh.
And then after we were done, then we would sit down and eat.
So like 5 hours later?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
And then after that, we would start lunch immediately. And after lunch, I would have to go and open up the snack shop for afternoon free time. And I would run the snack shop, and then which was like downstairs from the kitchen. And then I would go back upstairs, work on dinner, and then I would go back downstairs after we cleaned up dinner so that I could work on like nighttime snack shop. So I would make popcorn. I would make sure all of the sodas were stocked, like soda, like syrups and stuff for the machine. And it was just crazy. It was
sounds so fun.
It was so much fun. I had so much responsibility. That was just like, it was just me like working on it. And honestly, like that's how I thrive though.
Yeah.
So it was so fun. It was so physical and so hard. Like sometimes I would get an afternoon off, like in between lunch and dinner I would have like maybe an hour or two off, and I would just go to my room and sleep because it was so exhausting. But I just loved the ladies that I worked with in the kitchen. They were so fun, and they were so like funny, and they just loved me. And they thought they like thought it was hilarious that I was like this young 20-something working with them. Yeah, that was so fun. But also working at the museum. I liked working at camp so much because it was like your social life and your work life were like the same, because you didn't leave. Like it was just everybody that worked there, like that's it. That's who you have all summer. And that could be really bad. But it worked out. Like the people that we worked with were really great. And so it wasn't hard. Like we just were, like it wasn't hard to fit social time in with work. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm trying, like why I'm struggling to say that. I feel like I'm having a stroke. And so that was like cool to just be able to have everything all in one. But I also liked working at the museum. I had some really, really, really great managers at the museum. And that was again like a very hard job physically. And one time I was working so many hours that I did pass out at work.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was really scary. And like, you know how in one of the first episodes you were like, yeah, Mariah doesn't let anybody know that she's suffering.
Yeah.
So here's what happened. I felt like I was going to pass out. I was feeling like kind of sick. And my dad was in a meeting. And I was like, I have to get to Danielle. And she was my manager at the time. But also my best friend. And so I knew she was like across the pond at the other building. And so I was like, I just have to get to Danielle. So I walked to the end of this like long corridor, and I was waiting on the bus because we had a bus that took you from one building to the other. And so I was waiting. I was standing there waiting, and I was like literally like my vision was going. Like I was about to pass out. And this girl walked, I think she walked out of the bookstore, and she's turned and she saw me and she was like, Mariah, are you okay? And it was like this girl that worked in the offices. So like we only kind of knew each other. And I was like, I don't feel good. And she was like, well, what do you need? And I said, I need Danielle. And she was like, where's Danielle? And I said, she's at ticketing. And she was like, let's go to DPS. So she took me, she like had her arm around me and she walked me to like our public safety office. And they were so concerned about me.
I bet.
So they sat me down and they like checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was really low. My heart rate was really high. And so they just had me like sit there. So I didn't ever actually like pass out. But I think if Emily hadn't come out that door right when she did, I think I would have fallen to the floor.
Oh, yeah. Especially walking all the way to guest services.
I know. That was like, I don't know. It was, my mind was not clear.
Yeah.
Like I just was thinking like, because I couldn't bear the thought of being vulnerable in front of somebody else. Like Danielle was my best friend. That was the only person that I could think to go to because my dad was in a meeting. Like, but then they went and got my dad, and they were like, something's wrong with Mariah. And so he like came in and he was like, we gotta go home. So that was crazy. But it was really just like, I mean, I was working like 60 hours a week and commuting.
And you were how old?
It was after I moved back from North Carolina. So
okay.
I was 22, 23. So that was like some crazy times. But I loved that job so much. I was so fulfilled in that job. But it was just like very hard.
Yeah.
Hard work. Crazy. I've lived so many lives.
You
I've
have.
worked so many jobs. That doesn't even cover a lot of it.
Yeah. I feel like I lived so many lives. I feel like I lived so many lives just in Five Below alone.
Yeah. I feel like that too. Like just watching, like having known you through that whole season of life, like watching your progression of like as a person was crazy.
Yeah. It made me who I am, I think.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
it
it
definitely
did,
helped with like
standing up for
standing
yourself.
up for myself and like knowing things. Like I know a lot in like the retail world and in like management, and I don't know if it'll ever have a use again, but
that's crazy. I mean, it's just like crazy to think about how long you were there, and I don't know how much you grew. Like obviously everybody knows that you have a problem with authority.
Oh yeah.
And so I loved those stories because I think it shows it's such a good example of who you are. And I am so the opposite.
Yeah.
And just like hearing that you were face to face screaming with your manager, I'm just like, it makes me so nervous because I also have a problem with authority, but in the way that I will like fawn.
It's like fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard somebody ask that question on a podcast I was listening to. Like one of the questions was like, do you fear authority? And it was about like social anxiety. It was like some social anxiety test.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, like, and I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't think I ever fear authority. I think I just don't like authority.
Yeah, I fear it. I am so scared. Like, I've had this conversation with my brother before. Like, I'm so scared that I'm going to do, like, something wrong in public that I don't know is illegal. And then I'm just going to go to jail for the rest of my life. And it's going to be, like, a total mistake. And he's just like, girl.
You of all people, that would not happen to you.
'Cause I'm a rule follower. But it's also the autism. 'Cause it's like, you don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, I've always been this way, so I don't really know what made me this way. But it's not even like when I was working, like, it's not that I hated authority.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't like the managers.
Right.
It was because
it's a sense of justice.
Yeah, and they were like actually disrespectful.
Right.
And they treated me like I was below them, and that's what I couldn't stand for.
Like
I
you were-
respected them as managers.
Like you were 5 below them. I can pass that one up.
So, what was your mundane miracle of the week?
Getting this sweatshirt.
Aww.
This sweatshirt. If you are watching, it says aunt. Or, I mean, I guess if you aren't watching. But if you are watching, I'm going to explain it too. And so the fabric that spells out aunt is made from one of Lane's onesies that I tie-dyed before he was even born. And I went up to Michigan when Tessa was pregnant with Lane, and we were doing a bunch of stuff to prep for his birth and get ready for him and everything. And one of the things that we did was tie-dye a bunch of onesies, and that's just like a fun memory that we'd always talk about. And she sent me this for Christmas, and I just love it so much.
It's so cute and perfect.
It's just such a thoughtful gift.
And it looks so cozy too.
It is. It's so soft inside.
Oh, love that. Mine is the soup you made last night.
Yes, I was hoping you were going to say that.
Oh my gosh. She made pickle soup, and it might sound disturbing. Everyone thinks it sounds disturbing. We did too. Did I say disturbing?
Disturbing.
But it's amazing.
It's so good. It's Polish.
Yeah. So it's probably not what you're thinking. Like, it has shredded up pickles in it and like dill and stuff, but it also has potatoes and carrots and celery and onions. And it is such a good soup. It's such a good comfort food. Like, and with some bread on the side. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Gosh, it was so
We
good.
were so happy. We ate that last night, and oh my gosh, I can't wait to have it again today.
Yeah, she was eating it, and she was like, this is healing to my soul.
It really was. Like, it was actually so good, and just kind of like that thing that, you know, when you're sick, you want to eat that.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not sick, but like definitely if you're sick, it's like that would be like a healing thing. Yeah.
I love that so many of your mundane miracles, well, both of us,
involve
food.
Well, sometimes that's the most exciting thing to happen.
We do love to eat.
Yeah, we really do. Especially because we just always, well, mostly Mariah comes up with or finds new recipes to make, and they're just so good. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
See you next week.
Peace.